Hello and welcome to Pursuing Parenthood, a place for everyone who knows they are a parent in their heart, and also for those who are thinking about parenting in the future. It's a place to discover joy and hope and empowerment and excitement on this process that sometimes can have bumps in the road. And so I'm very excited to have with us today Leslie Potter. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
And a little bit about Leslie. Leslie Potter is the founder of Pure Joy Parenting. I love the sound of that already. A joy-based parenting model based on her experience raising her daughter as a single mom, as well as working with families. She supports mamas and a few papas who are curious as to how their shadow side plays out in their parenting. Leslie brings to the parenting discussion the view that if we don't consciously work with our unconscious material that we learn to repress as children, then our children can play out the shadow piece for us. She's the co-author of Chaos to Connection, 9 Heart-Centered Essentials for Parenting Your Team. She's a parent coach with the background as a body-centered therapist. She has unschooled her daughter, as well as supported her going back to school on her own terms. And her greatest love is hanging with other parents who are determined to challenge their conditioning and open to the wonder of parenting on their own terms. So again, welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Deb. It's great being here.
You know, everyone who's here on the video series about pursuing parenthood, we all seem to have a unique journey or a story. So can we start with your story, please?
Yeah, it's a good juicy story. I was born and raised in Mississippi. And so I had a very Southern traditional background and had always thought I was going to be a parent. I mean, that was just a given. I thought I would get married and have children. And ended up, I was an actress. So I moved to New York City and did acting and traveled Europe and then created a band. So I was a little bit of a bohemian, even though I came out of Mississippi. And so lived a very full, crazy, wild life. And then woke up at 40 and went, oh, I forgot to be a mother.
That happens. Yeah.
I kept thinking it was going to happen. And then I didn't get married. I was doing my career and having a great time. And then I was like, well, I think I can not be married. That was one thing that I thought I could give up, but I could not give up being a mom. It was just in my heart, as you say. I've known since I was a young child that I've always adored children. At a party, I would always end up in the kid room, with the kids and my nieces. And it was like, I have to be a mother. And so this call built so deeply in me. But I was terrified. I mean, again, I'd grown up in the South, so I had people were like, first of all, you're too old. You don't have enough money. You can't do this on your own. You're wild. You'll raise a crazy child. I just had so many conditions in the way. And yet this urge was so strong. It was so powerful that I found my courage to say, okay, you all can have your opinions, but I'm going to be a mother. So I thought about artificial insemination. I checked that all out. I remember sitting on my porch reading all the the profiles. And then it was like so clear that I was supposed to adopt. Okay. And I wanted to adopt a girl. And so I began to look on the internet for Chinese adoption because I knew that the girls were available from China. And I couldn't find a thing. I mean, nothing came up. It was so weird. Wow. And so I said, okay, well, I guess that's not it. And then the urge just kept building and building and building. And 6 months later, I got so enraged in my life. I was just like, God, if you're not going to let me be a mother, take me. I mean, it was just like, it was that strong. And I'll never forget, I got on the internet that day and there was an agency 40 minutes away from me in Denver. And the next day they sent me an overnight package. I mean, it was like, when the timing is right, the timing is right. And an overnight package, filled out the form. And within 2 weeks, I was on my way to adopting my daughter.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations. And thank you for sharing your path. Because like you said, it's all different. But some of us just have this deep, deep knowing. And we have then at the beginning these days of, like, I know this, I know it. And we just have to keep taking kind of the next step, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And you did. Can you tell us a little bit about your daughter and the relationship now?
Yeah, she is 17 now. I can't believe it. She's going to be a senior in high school, and I can't even speak. I mean, I will tear up if I speak about, our connection and our relationship. I am a therapist, and I was so clear that, I'd done all my work and I was going to be a great mother and I wasn't going to be my mother, all that. And of course, we hit many bumps in the road, and I chose to take on being the safe person for my daughter. So I began to let go of many agendas, many ideas, lots of conditioning. And so I can tell you today that I have an amazing 17-year-old, and she told me yesterday, it's like, Mom, I am so grateful that we have the relationship that we have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty powerful.
And sometimes it's hard to, when we're in the spot of trying or at the beginning steps on the path, to think way in the future. And yet some of your work really focuses on why we need to focus on what we repressed as a child or our parenting issues, because they're going to come up. So can you tell us a little bit about your work and how that can help the viewers, whether they're single, couple, male, female, like, what do we need to know?
Yeah, well, it's really critical. I mean, I didn't adopt my daughter until I was 44, and I had done 20 years of therapy, lots of spiritual work. I really thought I was prepared. But what I found out is that there were really deep, dark places inside that I had never activated because I didn't get married, or I left relationships, or I could always get out of, things that were difficult for me. So here I was locked in the room with this baby that I was not going to leave. That was my commitment. I had closed all the doors. And so much came up for me, especially for me around abandonment and rejection, because that was a core wound for me. And of course, I adopted a daughter who was abandoned and rejected. So I got to relive that in myself through my daughter, us going in that together. And so I began to learn how I had repressed I had organized my life around not feeling certain feelings that my daughter came with. And until I was willing to actually feel those feelings, I could not actually help her deal with the trauma that she came with.
Wow.
So it was very powerful.
Very powerful. It sounds very deep kind of thing. What were the first steps? Like, how do we recognize what some of our issues might be?
Well, it's really once you become a parent, the becoming to be a parent is filled, for me at least, it was filled with fantasy, it was filled with ideas, it was filled with joy, it was filled with all that I thought I was going to be and all I thought she was going to be. Mm-hmm. So if I looked at it, if I started over, what I would do from the beginning is do a little bit of work, my personal work, to try to understand some of the early childhood conditioning that I came with. And I highly recommend this for parents. It's not to keep you from adopting, it's to prepare you, or having a child, it's to prepare you to understand yourself better. Because all of my work is about creating a safe environment for our children, a safe emotional environment. And if we don't know ourselves, where we get emotionally, what I call triggered, which is early stuff from our past, and parenting can be very triggering. Because we have these little young beings that didn't get the agenda, or I tell people they didn't get the notice that they're coming here to make their parents happy. Right? They come with all these big, huge feelings, and they're going to be expressing them. And if we weren't able to feel those as children, if we had to repress them, it gets really scary and intense when our children express them. Yes. So if it were me again, I would probably support someone. You're always welcome to look at my work because it's just supportive to understand yourself and to understand where in your life you may have some repressed feelings that may get triggered in your parenting.
Yeah, you make an excellent point that we might think we aren't going to be like our parent. We're going to do it differently, or we're going to do some things the same. And then all of a sudden, I mean, as recently as yesterday, I heard my mom come out my mouth, and I was like, and it's out there, and you can't roll it back. So this early work seems really important to be aware, because all of a sudden we have a child in our life, and yeah, it's funny what's triggered for all of us.
Yeah, I call it a mirror. We look in the mirror. So I like to say, whatever we hate in ourselves, we're going to hate in our child. And whatever we love in ourselves, we're going to love in our child. So it's amazing. It's amazing work, because you're going to get to see places in yourself that you haven't offered kindness and love to. And you get to.
I will keep that in mind.
The next time.
Yeah, the next time I see them. So the adoption process for you was an international adoption process, correct?
Yes, it was.
What, for someone who's considering adoption, especially international adoption, what do they need to know? Like, what is important as they take kind of this journey?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, once you decide, the excitement is so, there. For me, as I say, I never forget getting fingerprinted and being excited. I was like, woohoo, I'm getting fingerprinted. I'm having a police check. People were looking at me like I was crazy. So the biggest thing is, if your enthusiasm and your commitment and your excitement is there, the process is pretty straightforward. The agencies will take you through that. That wasn't an issue. There's home studies, police checks, fingerprints, all those things. But they're very, very joyful when you know that end goal is there. So I think the biggest piece I could encourage is just knowing inside, once you're ready, as I told you 6 months before, no doors open. When I was really ready, it was like the universe just like, everything. And then I felt really supported.
Excellent. So do you have any words of wisdom for your past self, who was kind of in that 6-month zone, kind of thinking we're ready, but maybe not really ready? What would you tell yourself, or what do people need to do, consider?
Yeah, I think, again, the biggest piece for me was really finding that truth, not living into the conditioning. Because in that 6-month period, I was going, again, I'm too old, I'm single, I don't have the money. And so I was trying to fix all of those things instead of just going down into a deeper place of, I knew in my heart, I knew in my being, I knew in my gut that I had to do this. And so when I stopped, trying to finagle all the top things and went to the truth, then it got easy. That's when the doors began to open. I will tell a fun story. I want to tell a quick story real quick, because this one was so great. I didn't really know where I was going to get the money, but I was willing to put it on credit cards. And so I went forward, and 9 months in, $30,000 landed in my lap. I had no idea that I was going to get it. I didn't make it, it was like not from my plan or anything. And that was exactly what I needed to be able to adopt and then stay home with her for the first while.
Wow.
So it's like, whoo.
It's amazing how things just fall into place, isn't it? That once you make that decision.
Yes, when I went from that deep commitment versus trying to get rid of all the things that would stop me.
Would you say you were trying at first to talk yourself out of it? It sounds like some of those messages were like, I can't, like you knew there was a knowing, but you were trying to talk yourself out of it?
I think I was positioning myself more as a victim, than an empowered choice, that I could make a choice and really look at my life realistically. Yes, I was older. Yes, I was single, but it was a choice then at that point. I wasn't positioning as a victim of the culture that says you can't do this because.
Right.
It became a
So
dedicated
it
choice.
was your own paradigms or your own thoughts kind of thing. That stuff that you're referring to from even when we were younger, that seems to come up and play itself out. And
Absolutely.
those kind of issues, I think, also play themselves out, whether people are going through natural fertility or
Mhm.
natural conception or assisted reproductive technology or IVF or surrogacy. Like, we all have these messages that seem to come up, and we need to be aware. And once that awareness is there, do you have any suggestions of what people can do once they kind of realize that, not that they're talking themselves out of it, but maybe going to that victim stance?
Mhm. Well, it's the same thing you're going to have to do in parenting, because again, this is what happens is when we position in the victim stance, at least for me, I realized I was young. I was in a young position. So I was acting like a child. So I was looking outside for someone to tell me that it's okay to do or not okay to do. It was like I was looking to all the authority out there. And so when I was able to sit with that and recognize that and realize, well, actually, I'm an adult. I have charge of my life, right? And as an adult, yes, I wanted to sit down and look at what this was going to mean to my life. But once I took that adult position, then things got very, very easy. I wasn't looking outside any longer.
Right.
I was looking inside to my knowing, and I knew. And it's so funny because my dad did not talk to me for the first 6 months. My family all like thought I was going to just be a wild bohemian, because I had been a wild bohemian, but they thought I was not going to care for my daughter. They all disowned me for a little while. I mean, everybody. And I just had to go, okay, they can feel what they feel and think what they think. But I know in my heart of hearts, this is what I have to do. Now at 17, they think I'm the greatest mom in the world. They love my daughter. They're like, whoa. So I
Yes.
really had to, the rubber had to meet the road for me. I had to know who I am, not who that position as a victim of the whole world, looking to the world
Yeah.
to tell.
Although my path is a bit different, everyone's path is unique. It's funny, some of the parallels, but when my kind of day, when the rubber hit the road and it was like, I don't care if my parents and my siblings and my friends never speak to me again, I know at a core level, this is what I'm going to do, and boom. And it takes time for people to adjust to whatever path you may choose.
Yes.
But as you've said, they come around. They do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. They're all like in awe now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I want to tell the cutest thing, so many people then begin to say, well, what a noble act of humanity on my part. And I was like, no, on hers. She came back for me. So I feel she's the one that chose to come to support me and help me grow.
If she was here with us right now, what message might she have for a viewer who's considering adoption or international adoption?
It's funny because she just came in the room. She went back out again, but she came in the room real quickly. You know, we were, let's see, let me think on, I always like to do what would Megan think, because she teaches me so much. And I think Megan would, you know, support everyone in, especially parents in this choice, is to know that this isn't so much about you. This really is about the child. If you really want to bring a child into your life, do your own work. Take responsibility, grow up. Take responsibility for your feelings and who you are. Because especially if you adopt a child, they come with a history, and they often, they have a core vulnerability around abandonment and rejection. And they will not be here to heal you. They will not be here to take care of your wanting to be loved and wanting to feel important. They will actually trigger that so intensely. At least that was my experience. So I think she would say, make sure that you're doing this, for yourself, but know that this is really for the child.
It sounds like one of the greatest gifts that we can give our child, regardless of the path, but in particular in this example with adoption, is really to do our work. That is the gift, and to be aware of our triggers, because they will come up.
They will, and it's not safe for our children. When I make her into my abandoning mother or whatever, it's not safe for her. So I always, I'll give you something that I always ask. Anytime I'm in an encounter with my daughter, I will ask myself, and we're starting to fight or whatever, get like this, I'll say, in this moment, what am I willing to let go of so I can enter her heart?
Sorry, say that again.
What am I willing to let go of in this moment so I can enter her heart?
Okay.
Right? Because for me, it's all about relationship. And when I'm doing this and I'm fighting, I have an agenda, or I'm pushing or I'm pulling, I'm not entering my heart with her heart. Right? So every moment, because a lot of things that I want to push or pull or have an agenda, they aren't safe for her heart, for her being.
Okay.
So I always ask myself that question if we're starting to get into a little bit of a battle. What can I let go of to enter her heart?
Excellent.
When Megan was 6 years old, it was the most beautiful thing she ever told me. We had a big fight, and she looked at me and I said, "How can I get into your heart? I don't know how." And she goes, "Mama, there's a little tiny crack in my heart, and it's your job to get through it."
Wow.
So
Beautiful visual.
that's what I decided to do.
And now we use it. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your work now in general, like Pure Joy Parenting? What's that all about?
Well, I started Pure Joy Parenting, of course, in my own home, and then I started working with at-risk teens and their families, and realized it was so intense that I left the company where I created the parent coach model and created Pure Joy Parenting so I could work with families with younger children, because I didn't want them to have to get to those teenage years, because it's not necessary. I'm proof of that. So now I work with, I still work with parents of teens, but I do a lot of education, a lot of support, mostly for parents. Again, I'm not a person that teaches you how to parent. I believe that you innately know how to parent if you are really parenting from your heart. And so I teach parents to find out what the barriers are that keep them, the barrier between their heart and their children. Okay. And usually those barriers are our conditioning or our ideas or how we're supposed to look, what a good mother is or a good dad. And so I help parents kind of unwind those to coming back into present moment, heartful connection with their children.
Right. It's interesting that we're having this conversation. I'm thinking back to that time when the switch flicked for me, like I'm in. I've made the decision, I'm going forward. And at that time, I just needed to take kind of one day at a time to get to the next step versus thinking, what's parenting going to be like, 5 years from now, 10 years. I hadn't even thought of that. I just knew I was a mother in my heart. Yeah. I didn't care what other people thought or what their judgments might be. I was moving forward. And yet, if I had known this, I wonder how different those first years would have been when the triggers come up, kind of thing. So I want to thank you so much for sharing.
Yes.
Because this is valuable to everyone. And for me, it also would have put me in the place of that 100% assumption, like, yes, I am a parent. I need to do my work because, that's the gift I'm going to give my child. So yeah, this is a wonderful conversation to be having. Mm-hmm. And I believe you have a gift for our viewers.
I do. I have a podcast that's called How to Stop Beating Yourself Up in Your Parenting. And even though it's for parents already, it's a perfect podcast for this audience because it describes what happens to us as children. So again, all of my work is to guide you back more than how to parent. So listening to this ahead of time will be so great because it'll help you understand triggers, belief systems, and how they got set up in your life. So it'll prepare you. And then I have a free ebook that'll come along also with that. It's called 5 Parenting Beliefs busted. So I really like to take old or traditional parenting beliefs and turn them around, turn them into a new way of looking.
Lovely. Well, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that. And any final words of wisdom for our viewers today on Pursuing Parenthood?
Well, I just know anybody that's listening to this, I get excited for you. just remembering, and if you're listening, I imagine that urge is very deep. So please, just enjoy every moment of the process of preparing. Love yourself and trust your own deep wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you. What a fabulous note to wrap up on. So I want to thank you, Leslie. Thank you for joining us here today on Pursuing Parenthood. And thank you to all the viewers, because I couldn't have said it better. Leslie, you said it beautifully. Like, enjoy this process. I know it's hard some days. We all have those tough days that we're going through, but you can do it, and it's worth taking the next step. So until next time, I hope everyone has a great day.
Great. Bye. Thanks.